with up to 4 million households set to see their payments rise this year. Meanwhile, easy access savings accounts seem to be hovering just over 3%. The best one that I could find this morning so far is 3.4%. That's just one of several issues that will be discussed at a hearing in Parliament this afternoon. And John and Nina, with the budget only a week away now, you can be sure that the cost of living as well is going to come up in that hearing.
Yeah, a week for the Chancellor to make some big decisions. Hannah, thank you.
I'll stay with interest rates, though. We're joined by Dave Fishwick. Of course, you'll know his community bank in Burnley was immortalised in the Netflix film Bank of Dave. You've gone all Hollywood now, haven't you, really?
Well, it hit #1. I mean, we were so lucky. I mean, normally they spend about $400 million on getting a #1, but we didn't do that with mine.
Well, let's talk about money, shall we? Because following on from what Hannah was talking about, a lot of breakfast viewers say they're not noticing interest rates on any savings they might have in the way that they're being told immediately that their mortgage has gone up. Why does that happen, Dave?
Well, to be honest, banks are just not playing the game. I mean, they make a fortune. They send money all over the world buying credit default swaps and all sorts of complicated financial weapons of mass destruction, I call them. But it's really difficult to get a good interest rate. I mean, you're struggling to get 2 or 3%. And if you're a business, I mean, I've got half a dozen businesses, and every single one of those business accounts, there's not one of them that gets more than 2%, and there's a couple of them that get nothing. And they're positive accounts.
But what banks will say is, you run a business, we're in the business of making money. If interest rates go up from us and we're paying high interest rates on the debt that we're borrowing or the debt that we're involved with, we won't make as much money, and we need to.
It's a good question. But the thing is, the banks were bailed out by the taxpayer. They got an awful lot of money furlough. You know, they furloughed lots and lots of people, and they really did go to the taxpayer. So they have an obligation to give a little bit back. An average interest loan, when you're looking at a personal loan, is around about 10.71%. If they're giving you a couple of percent interest and they're charging it out at 10.71, where's the fairness in that? I mean, they've cut their overheads. They're closing 60 branches a month. That's what they did last year. There'll be 2 today that shut in, one this morning, and after I've had my dinner, there'll be another one this afternoon. You know, we cannot carry on closing banks at that rate. Interest rates need to be fairer. And then bank bonuses are going up. So we're cutting costs with banks closing. They're getting rid of lots of staff. You know, they're shutting everything everywhere. There's nowhere for people to go for financial advice. But yet they're charging a fortune for loans and they're doing absolutely nothing in return to the saver.
Would they say, look, what happened back in 2008 and the financial crisis and the credit crunch, and that we need banks to be resilient and they need to make money when they can make money, so that when it's not so easy, they've got some, should I say, in the bank?
Well, they do say that if we don't pay these bonuses of 30, 40 million, then the best of the bankers will disappear to America. Well, most of the time they're losing money. How can you not create a service for Granny to come in when she's worried about fraud? She can't use a mobile phone. My mum's 70-odd years old with the onset of Alzheimer's. She can't do online banking. I can't be there every day to do it for her. And she wants to be self-sufficient. Banks need to pay a better interest. They need to do a better service. And we need community banks run by the community to benefit the community and not the bonus culture.
Are the banks at fault, though? Because I go back to my earlier point, they are businesses at the end of the day. They want to reinvest their money. Does there need to be more stringent regulation from the government? It's been discussed in Parliament today. The FCA are looking into it. Do they need to be told what to do more?
Well, interestingly, Joe Gideon, the MP, is actually standing up in Parliament and talking to Rishi, and Rishi's going to mention me today in parliamentary questions. The Bank of Dave's going to get mentioned because they genuinely like the idea of communities looking after their community. You know, these big banks, I ain't got a problem with them making profit. I ain't got a problem with them being a business. But how can you pay next to nothing in interest, but then charge a fortune for it going out the other door? There has to be an element of fairness.
But there isn't a Dave in every town, is there?
No. But there could be. You know, it could be a Bank of Nina or a Bank of John. You know, it could be just inspired by us, local people taking this back into their possession. You know, I'm not saying I want to be in every town because I ain't got the time. At some point, I need to go back and sell a few buses. But I do want to see more community banking, because unless we do, we're going to see banks charging more and more on interest. I mean, look at mortgages. They're through the roof.
But it's risky, isn't it? It's a risky business. And a lot of people will just think, I can't get into that. Like, setting up a community bank leaves me really exposed.
I think if you do it with genuine, honest, ethical people who've got the right morals, there's lots of old-fashioned bank managers out there, like I've got with David H., who've been in the job 50, 60 years, manually underwriting, looking at people as people. So if they've had a problem this year, last year, year before, we look at that and we manually underwrite. A computer 300 miles away can't make a decision about a florist in Accrington. We can't have that. And the more banks close, the more that will happen. Interest rates are going up, and we're just not seeing the savers benefiting. How can you charge? So, for instance, 10,000 quid, you get a couple of £100 interest on 10,000 quid, your life savings, right? And they're going to get £1,200 on that when they lend it out at nearly 12%.
Yeah,
How does that work?
It's whether or not regulation can impose it, isn't it? John might be asking you to lend him some money in a minute because he managed to get some Eurovision tickets.
I did.
Yeah.
Don't hang around too much, he'll be tapping you up.
I got a loan from the Bank of Nina to do it.
That'll be the
manually
day.
underwrite that. How's John doing? We know it works.
Lovely to see you. Thank you very much
so
indeed for coming in.
Real pleasure.
Breakfast is on BBC One until 9:15. Morning Live takes over then.